Hi, I'm Jeanne Fiorini. Thanks for being part of the Tarot Tips. We're into, I think, 70 plus videos here helping people to work with their cards in more effective ways. One of the questions I get all the time, and actually the next couple of videos are going to be replies and responses to questions that subscribers have submitted over the last couple of months. So if you have something that's really, troubling you about how you work with your cards, or problematic for you, or an issue that you just can't seem to quite get over, as somebody who's learning and working with their cards, feel free to send me a note and I will try to address it in a future tarot tip. So the thing that we're going to talk about today is, why is it so hard to read for myself? I think probably everybody can relate to this one. And there is a simple answer to that. Being a good reader requires that you be objective. And if you're reading for yourself, you're coming from a subjective position. You have your own wants and needs around whatever the question's going to be. You have your own experience. So the short answer there is that it's hard to read for yourself because it's practically impossible to be objective and subjective at the same time. Having said that, I'm going to give you a couple of hints or suggestions that might help with this issue, because sometimes we just need a little help from the outside figuring out something that's going on with us. So the first suggestion is to not go to your cards too often for your own personal issues. I think if you've done this, you probably have had the experience of, well, I'm going to ask it once, I pull a few cards, I'm going to ask it again later, I'm going to pull a few cards, I might get something different, and now I'm all confused, so I'm going to ask it again. And by the time you're done, you're more confused than when you started. So try not to ask your own issues of the tarot on too regular of a basis. I would use it for, okay, I really need some insight here, or I really need another perspective. Pull out your cards then. So that's the first suggestion. The second thing is a little bit obvious, and I've mentioned this in other tarot tips, and that is, when you're dealing with your own issues, don't ask a question to which you do not really want an answer, because you're never going to get clarity that way. Is this relationship gonna work? Will I be financially successful at my new venture? Turn the question around. How can I be financially successful in this new venture? What's the best I can do to get this relationship to work? Rephrasing the question is something I think I've talked about in a tarot tip, but if I haven't, I will in the future. The third point I want to make about this, or suggestion, is, okay, if it's hard to be subjective and objective at the same time, you can't help but be subjective, try to find ways to be objective, to remove yourself a little bit from the situation. One way of doing this would be to record your reading, either on video or just with a handheld recorder on your phone or something. This will help you be aware that you are sitting in the reader position, that you're not in the querent position. Okay, so recording your readings can sometimes help with this. Another suggestion to be objective would be, pretend that you're talking to your best friend and you're really doing a reading for them, but you're using your own name. So let's say I'm doing a reading about a relationship, and I would say, okay, Jeanne, well, it looks like you both like each other, but you really don't want the same thing out of this relationship. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Okay, so putting yourself in the position of the reader, talking as if you were talking to someone else, but use your own name, because sometimes that's very helpful. You're talking to yourself, but not as yourself. Along with this, another suggestion is going to be, this is true about any time that you're reading cards, whether it's for yourself or your grandmother or anybody else. Let yourself know the first thing that pops into your head. A lot of times we just talk ourselves out of that really quickly, like we'll get a hit or we'll get a take on something, and then you go, well, that can't be it. So then you sort of fish around for, what does that card mean, and what do I think it might be in this situation? especially when you're reading for yourself, this will help with being objective, try to let yourself hear or know or intuit or pick up on the first thing that hits you. The fourth suggestion here about trying to be objective is going to be to take notes. It sort of falls in the category of recording your session, but take notes. Especially if you might be asking this question a couple times over the next couple of weeks. Write down the date, write down exactly how you asked the question, write down the cards you got, write down your thoughts about them. Without judgment, just write down what you get. And then if you ask the question again a couple days later, do the same thing. Make note of the date, make note of the question exactly as you phrased it, and the cards that you got and the information that you received from them at that time. So reading for yourself is pretty tricky. It's not always easy. It does require some self-awareness. Okay, do I know that I'm really twisting this interpretation around a little bit? It takes a real strong sense of discipline there to say, okay, I'm going to really be open to whatever comes out here. So hopefully that will help you in trying to read for yourself. Let me make a comment that in closing with this video that might be a little obvious, but I am available for tarot readings. Skype makes it very easy for us anywhere in the world to communicate with one another. I've done readings for people in Australia, for people in Spain, people in England. It's kind of bizarre actually, but it's almost as good as being there. So if you're interested in having a reading, you can check out on the TarotWorks.com the readings page on my website if that interests you. The prices are there. It's probably not as expensive as you might think. Even if we never have a communication, I appreciate you being part of the Tarot Tips, and tune in next time. We'll be addressing more subscriber questions.